You are listening to an interview with clinical hypnotherapist Dr. Steve G. Jones. For a free hypnosis download, please visit stevegjones.com.
Hello and welcome back to the Ultimate Coaching Lifestyle Series. I'm your host, Emily Utter, business coach for adventurous entrepreneurs, helping you create a business and life you love with the freedom to travel the world. I am really excited about my guest today, Dr. Steve G. Jones. Hey, Dr. Steve, how are you?
Hey, great, Emily. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I'm so happy to have you here because the topics we're going to get into today, I'm kind of obsessed with. So I'm excited about this conversation. And I know that not everyone watching knows who you are. Maybe they've never seen you before. So I'd love to share with them a little bit more about you. And then we'll get into today's topic, which you're all going to love because it's the wealth secrets from a self-made millionaire. So let me share with you a little bit more about Dr. Steve. He's a clinical hypnotherapist, NLP trainer, life coach, and LOA expert, which is Law of Attraction. He's the founder of the American Alliance of Hypnotists, American Union of NLP, and the Global Sciences Foundation. Dr. Jones has his doctorate in education from Georgia Southern University and has also studied psychology at Harvard. He has created thousands of self-help recordings, programs, and certification courses to empower others. I am so excited to have you here, Dr. Steve. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Heck yes. This is going to be really good because one of the things we've been talking about in a lot of the series is mindset, emotional freedom. So we've been talking a lot about lifestyle and financial freedom, location freedom, all of those things that many entrepreneurs are going for. But as you know, Dr. Steve, without having the right mindsets in place, it's very, very hard to be successful. And so I'm really excited to have your background because you're bringing this really interesting blend that I think is going to be really fascinating for this audience. So I would love to start by just learning a little bit more about you and your background and how you became a self-made millionaire.
Well, that's been a long journey, of course. I mean, I'm almost 50 now, so it's there have been a lot of ups and downs and twists and turns. But I initially got into hypnotherapy, which I make my money from in high school. I was hypnotizing my roommates in Riverside Military Academy because I got a book on hypnosis, The Complete Guide to Hypnosis by Leslie Lecron. And so started hypnotizing them. Soon the smart kids came to me wanting to study more effectively. The athletes wanted to exercise more efficiently and win more. So all these years later, it's the same thing I was doing back then as a kid in high school, except now the smart kids are NASA and the athletes are the Dodgers. And by taking my knowledge and leveraging it in such a way as to produce an income, I've been able to do that, to make a living. We now have a lot of affiliates around the world, a lot of strategic partners who email for us to promote my products. A lot of people who are in The Secret, Joe Vitale, Bob Proctor, Jack Canfield. We have John Asseroff. We have people we've reached out to and made friends with who we promote what they do and they promote what I do. And we've gotten the world a lot of information about hypnosis. And as a result, it's made me fairly wealthy.
That is awesome. I love it. Okay, so I know that people watching right now, because they're aspiring to do what you've done. Most people watching this have not yet earned their first million. And I'm wondering if you can share with us, what are some of the things that you've done? Obviously you learn these tools, but if we could kind of dig in a little bit into your behavior, your way of thinking, the choices you've made, what are some things you could share with us that can help us see what sorts of choices and decisions that we could be making to get closer to the place that you are?
Well, I've seen a lot of people make a lot of money in my business, and I've seen different people handle it different ways. So one thing that I can say from my own personal experience that's, I think, separated me and put me in the category of people who are continuing to be financially successful is just doing things such as not getting carried away with, buying a lot of things. Now, this requires a balance, because sometimes you want to buy something to show to your subconscious mind that you're successful so that you can do more. But some people can get a little bit carried away and they go beyond what they actually should, beyond the bills that they can actually pay. So I have found that just good old-fashioned common sense about saving and living below your means and having a long-term plan and not getting caught up and having a budget. These are mostly things I learned from Warren Buffett, but these things are very helpful when it comes to continuing to be successful, because in the internet, what people find rather quickly is it's very easy to make a lot of money, but it's also very easy to spend a lot of money. So
that is
discipline,
true.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd love to dig into this a little bit deeper, because I know one of your areas of expertise is the law of attraction, and you just named a bunch of people from The Secret who you've worked with, and much of the premise of The Secret really is using the law of attraction. And yet at the same time, you gave some really practical advice, which is don't go out and buy all these great things and be living far beyond your means. And so I'm curious what you would say about, and I know balance almost feels like a ridiculous word to even try to say right now, but how do entrepreneurs, or what would you recommend that entrepreneurs do to find what is that sweet spot of the law of attraction and buying something or investing in something because it feels good, and then making sure that you don't get carried away?
Well, I think the secret to that is to look at people who are successful, people from The Secret or anywhere else, and realize that the part of them you want to emulate is not necessarily the part in their life that they're at right now, where they have millions of dollars and they can pretty much buy what they want. A lot of people do that. For example, I see people who want to be seminar leaders, and they think they'll come in and have a big seminar and charge a lot of money the first time around, when nobody even knows who they are. People think that when they buy the things that millionaires have, that makes them like millionaires. No, that usually just puts them into debt. So I think the balance is to realize that the people you see who are very successful, who have manifested and used the law of attraction, they are people who have built up things over time. And
Yes.
they're also, when you see the nice things that they have, it's only a small percentage of their total net worth. So you have to scale it back. What's a small percentage of your total net worth? Maybe that's what you should allocate to a car, rather than getting a fancy car and thinking that that's going to somehow make you wealthy. It could actually work the other way. It could end up being a large expense.
I love that. Okay, because that's one of the things that really inspired me to put this series together was, I've seen among friends and peers, and you hear stories of people who, technically they're bringing in a lot of income, but it's all going out the door. And so that was one of the things I was really curious to get into in these conversations as part of this series was, okay, first of all, to me, that's not real freedom. If you're earning all this money, but you're not holding on to it and you can't actually get the things that you need, that's not real freedom. But then how do we find that sweet spot? So that's really helpful that we don't want to be just going out and emulating the purchases of people that have a completely different financial situation than we do. That was really cool. And one of the things, too, that you said that I wrote, you didn't use these words, these are my words, but I wrote, pay your dues. And this is another thing that has been kind of bugging me about what we see online and social media is, and the thing that I kind of go on a rant on is Facebook ads, because there's so many Facebook ads that make it look like, oh, all you need to do is buy a laptop and you'll be a millionaire overnight, which isn't true. And so I love that you say, these people that we're looking at and that we admire and that we see in the movies and online, they've been putting in their time forever. It's not like, this quick thing that just happened. So I think it's really important, especially for anyone watching right now who's new, to realize that every single person who I'm featuring in this series and every successful person who we allude to or that we talk about today, it's been years of effort to get to that level. It's not like they just, made their vision board and the next day someone rang the doorbell with a suitcase full of cash, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, you want to build your way up to it. And that's how you make sure that you have the long-term discipline and plans that will maintain that. A lot of times we see people winning the lottery. I had a friend from high school whose family won the lottery. He's somehow in debt for about $500,000 now. I don't know how he managed to mess that up, but he didn't have the underpinning to accept that level of wealth because it just came to him in a windfall. So when you build things up slowly, you not only pay your dues, but you also learn the skills that are going to maintain that for you.
Yes, I love it. And interestingly, I definitely don't know the exact stat, but I've read somewhere that I think 50 or even more percent of people that win the lottery go bankrupt because they can't manage it. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yep.
Okay, so we're not exactly saying this, but one of the things that I see is people, they want to grow really, really fast. And I think we've just kind of explained why that doesn't really work. Another thing too is I think sometimes people feel like they have to choose a certain niche or, be in a certain industry in order to be really wealthy, become really wealthy, which I don't believe is true. And so I would love to get a little bit more of your perspective on, what advice do you have for people who want to earn great money, but doing what they love? Because I see for my clients, most of my clients are coaches. They think, oh, well, only entrepreneurs have money or only rich people have money to invest, which really isn't true. And so what's some of the advice that you have for people who want to earn great money, doing the thing that they actually want to do, that they love?
Well, I would say do that thing, follow your passion. I mean, even Warren Buffett has talked about this. He says if you can do something that you don't love and make twice the money, don't do it because you're going to burn out. It's not going to, I'm just paraphrasing here, but it's not going to work out long term and it's not going to be worth it. And in recent years, we've seen all kinds of reality TV shows about people who blow duck whistles and people who work on tow trucks and in the logging industry and digging for buried treasures and trash heaps. And these are things that, if they told their parents they were going to do these things when they were kids and they were looking at that versus going to college and maybe becoming a doctor or a lawyer, the parents probably would have attempted to talk them out of it. But now they're multimillionaires with their own reality shows. And they write books about this and they become celebrities, so they get celebrity endorsement money. So I'm an example of that myself. My parents told me when I was in college, I was getting ready to start college at the University of Florida in the 1980s, and my parents wanted me to major in business and minor in computers. Computers weren't very sophisticated back then, so computers.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so computers was a minor, as opposed to the various fields we have now. We're just branching out now, but so I said no, I don't think so. I'm just going to major in psychology because that was my interest. And of course, their thought was you're not going to make any money in that. Well, oddly enough, I hire the people now who majored in business, and I make a lot more money than them. Not trying to brag, but just trying to show you.
No, I get it.
Yeah, it's the power of following your passion. Things just have a way of working out when you do that.
Yeah, I love it. No, and I think what I really am wanting to do in this series is share these real stories. So I love that you said that because it's not bragging, but it is the reality. And I did an interview a couple of years ago with a couple who runs a business together, and their whole thing was don't go get an MBA, like go out there and just start creating something that can actually bring in money. So I know we're not here to debate the merits of MBAs, but
Right.
it's all about like putting in the effort and doing the work. And okay, so I have a question for you because one of the things that I've noticed for me as my business has grown is that my vision starts to expand. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is, obviously you've been very successful. You've created a lot of wealth for yourself. You have all these great affiliate partners who promote your products. Technically, you could probably not do much. Like you could just chill and, take the earnings that are coming in from your products. And yet I know that you're always producing new things and putting them out there. So I'm wondering, what is it that keeps you motivated? Because at this point, it may not be money. Is it something else? Is it still money? Like, are your money dreams growing? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'm actually a very simple person. I just have one home and one car. It's a luxury car, but and it's a luxury home. But I keep things very simple. So at this point, it's not about money for me. I'm set for life. I'm good. But a little bit of it is selfish. I have found through reading studies in psychology that people who just retire and they don't have any meaning in life, they tend to die early. And I don't want that. So part of it's selfish. I want to stay alive. Another part of it is I just have all this energy and I need to do something with it. I mean, I work out 3 days a week and I do, various things. And I travel a lot, but I've got a lot of energy, both creative energy and physical energy. So I want to do something. And the third part, which I think is the most important part, is that I have a contribution to make to the world, and I have a responsibility to the world. And so I have gained a certain amount of knowledge and a certain amount of success, but that, in my opinion, doesn't entitle me to just hoard it all and run off to an island and live some kind of happily ever after fairy tale. It gives me the responsibility to give back.
That is super cool. I love it.
You are listening to an interview with clinical hypnotherapist Dr. Steve G. Jones. For a free hypnosis download, please visit stevegjones.com.
I'm becoming really fascinated with the impact of psychology. I personally would love to get trained in NLP because I think it would really help my clients a lot. And of course, me too, for sure. But I think that would be an additional tool for me to be able to use with my clients when they're coming up against blocks. And I can't say much about what NLP is. It stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. It's one of the tools that Tony Robbins is famous for using and really, helping make popular. And I would love to hear a little bit more about the impact that you see this has on this type of tool, or even the hypnosis has on entrepreneurs. So if you have any really cool stories of kind of before and after, anything like that, I would love to hear it because I'm fascinated by this stuff.
Well, yeah, I use NLP in my hypnosis practice quite regularly, and I also use life coaching. Life coaching is something you'll use any kind of therapist that you happen to be. You'll get into a little bit of life coaching, telling people what to do and having them be responsible for that. That's how I summarize life coaching. But as far as success stories, I remember when I had my office in Beverly Hills in the Roxbury Medical Building. I was there from 2000 to 2004. I had a guy come to me who was I'm not allowed to mention his name because of HIPAA regulations, and he hasn't given me permission to, but if I did, you'd know who he is. And he was having a slump, and he needed to get back on top of his game. So I was able to use NLP with the hypnosis because NLP offers one of the things it really does well at is offering connections, like between a previous success and where you are now, or between feeling a certain state and what you feel now. We can connect the two so that you can have the power from the past. And so I was able to pick out a time when he was riding the wave really high and he was feeling good and he was making good money, because when I met him, he was in a slump. Nobody was hiring him. He was a producer and no one was hiring him to produce anything. So he was in a slump. So in order to get him back on top of the wave, I had to connect him to the other time that he was on top of the wave. And I just gave him some simple NLP techniques to use, such as anchoring. And that was enough to tie him to that time, so that when he did go back into his everyday life, he was able to come back with this power of back in the day. Some people would call that getting your mojo back. But in NLP, we have a very particular way of helping people do that.
That is super cool. I love it. And so I know that it sounds like you combine the modalities of hypnosis and NLP. And I got to say, before I really understood the therapeutic benefits of hypnosis was always the funny thing. There'd be like the magician hypnosis person would come into school and they'd be on stage and they, it would embarrass your friends because they'd do the chicken dance, or, they'd make the students say they were in love with the principal, or just embarrassing stuff. So I'd love to have you share too a little bit more on hypnosis specifically and how it is a therapeutic tool and what can shift for people, because I'm guessing that a lot of this audience is totally down with hypnosis. Maybe they've tried it, but then there's probably another segment of this audience that's kind of thinking in a skeptical way around why would we use this tool?
Yep. Well, there is the distinction between stage hypnosis, which you referenced, and clinical hypnotherapy. And stage hypnosis is the idea of getting people to cluck like a chicken or bark like a dog on stage. And I have friends who do that. I have several friends who do that, and they're very successful at it. And They've done it for a long time, and I believe in that. It's some people think it's fake, but actually they're just getting very suggestible people and giving them suggestions on stage, and that's all it is. And some people are shocked when they see that. How could someone actually think that they're a chicken? And so the challenge, though, comes when I have people in a clinical setting who say, "Oh, you're not going to make me cluck like a chicken or bark like a dog, are you?" Because that's all they've seen. So we use the same power, the same technology, the same way into the subconscious mind, but we do it for their benefit. So once I have them in hypnosis, I'm helping them do things such as have confidence or have motivation or become more abundant, or things that they want to work on that are more positive for them. And so we're making that change in the subconscious mind so that it's going to drive their conscious activities in their everyday lives.
I love it. Okay. So this conversation is so fun for me, and it's just leading me in different directions. I think when I started out in business, I didn't really get how significant the mindset work is. And the more that I do this, the more I feel like it's 90% and strategy is 10%. And I'm wondering if there's anything you can say to this, or why is it so important? Because I can tell you that one of the things that's hard for me in coaching my clients is there are people who I notice who will just get paralyzed, and I can't seem to get them moving, or they'll take small steps, but they still will have these really significant blocks. And it's my suspicion, you can tell me if this sounds right, that there's probably something deeper going on in the subconscious mind. And I would love to hear you share a bit more about, okay, what is really going on there when somebody's showing up in paralysis, or maybe they reach a plateau on their abundance or something like that. And then what is it that's actually happening after you've done NLP with somebody or you've done hypnosis with somebody? It's like this little magical mystery. And so can you say a little bit about what is actually going on? Why does this work?
Well, why does hypnosis work? To help them break through that?
Well, or just even what's happening. So I know that you're working with the subconscious, but is it really about rewiring the brain and that there is a way to actually stop a story that's been limiting, or what is really going on? I'm just so curious.
Well, I think a lot of times when people are stopping themselves from success, especially in something measurable, which is always great to work with, such as how much money do they have in the bank? You know, we can watch that go up or down. How much do they weigh? We can watch that go up or down, or percentage of body fat if they want to be more sophisticated about it. So as long as we have some data points we can gather, it's easy to measure. And many times what we'll notice is that when people start becoming more successful, they start gaining more money or losing more weight, they sabotage themselves because a thermostat goes off inside their mind, just like it would in a house. So, you know, your house gets too hot or too cold, and the thermostat's going to kick in because there's a range that the thermostat's going to keep that house within. And if it gets above or below that, the thermostat gets notified and takes action. We have that same thermostat in our subconscious mind. So, yeah, and you may think, why would that be? If someone starts to lose weight and they start to look good, why would anything get in the way of that? Well, perhaps they had some unwanted attention when they were a child that stemmed from them being attractive, and they want to create, for lack of a better term, a protective barrier around themselves with that extra weight. Or maybe when it comes to wealth gaining, you know, maybe they heard that rich people are horrible people, or, you know, money is evil, you know, all these things that people hear or think or put together through their lives. Or, you know, maybe if I get money, I'll be expected to get more money, or people will be looking at me, or, you know, there could be all kinds of things that for them at a subconscious level are actually detrimental to their being, and their subconscious mind is very aware of that and doesn't want them to get hurt. So it starts to go the opposite direction. So the trick is to get the subconscious mind on the same level as the conscious mind. So you consciously say, I want to lose weight, I want to get more money, but subconsciously, are you saying that? So that's where hypnosis comes in to break through that. And it does, you mentioned stories, it does then allow you to change the story in that you can write a whole new story.
This is freaking fascinating. Okay. And so to me, I'm seeing a tie here too with the law of attraction, because am I right that the law of attraction that most of us are doing is more on the conscious level? And if the subconscious level isn't caught up, we may start to be able to manifest certain things, but we'll find that others are not coming through, or it only comes through to a point. Or, I see this a lot with my peers where they just plateau at a certain income level and they're just there for years. Or body was a great example. Is my suspicion right? Or correct me, please, if it's not.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That they are setting off that thermostat. Is that what you mean?
Well, just that, law of attraction alone won't work if the corrections haven't been made in the subconscious.
Gotcha.
Because most of the law of attraction work is at the conscious level. Is that right?
Well, it can be. I mean, over time, it gets to the subconscious level. But you're right. Okay. You're absolutely right. A lot of times people just consciously think, maybe they'll read the book The Secret, or see the movie The Secret, or see something about that, and they'll think for a little while, hey, yeah, I should be rich. That would be great. And I'm going to think about that for a few days. And it doesn't happen, and they wonder why. Well, it's because they have only entertained it at a conscious level, whereas subconsciously they've got the thermostat going on, and they haven't really taken the time to ingrain that belief. They haven't really started to surround themselves with successful, productive, abundant, happy people who are going to support their success. And so, yes, it becomes true that the lack of having their subconscious mind participating in it can lead to failure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So now this is taking me down another rabbit hole, which is clearly doing this hypnosis work and the NLP work is something that I think all entrepreneurs should probably do, and probably do continuously. And I'm wondering too, outside of these tools, are there other ways to influence the subconscious, or is this really the best way to do it?
Well, as a hypnotherapist, I would say that it's the best way to do it. But, there's more than one way to skin a cat, as Dr. Phil would probably say. There's long-term therapy, which is certainly fine. I have some friends who have undergone that. There are even drug therapies for some people. I'm not an advocate of drug therapies, but some people just don't want hypnotherapy, and they'd rather have something mainstream like that. So rather than suffering with sadness and depression and lack of productivity, if that's what works for them, fine. They can always ease off of that later. But there are all kinds of ways for someone to overcome their limiting beliefs. Hypnotherapy, NLP, life coaching, those are in what we would call the holistic sphere. But we've also got mainstream therapy and counseling, seeing a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist or a marriage and family therapist. Those are legitimate treatments as well.
Okay, interesting, because that's kind of what some of my curiosity was really is the coaching work hitting the subconscious? And it sounds like it is in some ways, but that maybe definitely combining it with these technologies that you're talking about would be extremely powerful. But that it can happen, it just might be over a little bit of a longer time frame.
Right. You mean if you're using coaching without hypnosis and NLP?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because when you're using coaching, then you've taken out the mainstream things that a licensed psychologist might offer, but you haven't yet used the tools. You're not using the tools of the psychologist or the tools of NLP or hypnosis. If you're just talking about coaching them purely without using things from any of those worlds, I would think that would be one of the least effective ways to work with someone.
Interesting. Okay, cool. It's so funny because now all I'm thinking is, all right, because I've been thinking about learning NLP for a long time, and now, I am sold on the power of this, and I think learning hypnosis would be really cool too. Whatever works to create the biggest transformation, for sure.
Yes.
Okay. So I know one of the things you talk about sometimes is the importance of enjoying your wealth. Can you speak to that and why? Why is it important to enjoy your wealth?
Well, you have to be doing things for a reason. And, for me, really the reason is not the money. It's just to help people. And for the other reasons that I mentioned, to continue living and to feel good about myself and the contribution I make. Plus, I feel somewhat indebted to society to give back. But it is important to enjoy your wealth, because if you're not doing that, especially when we look at the law of attraction and the psychological aspect of the law of attraction, you reinforce that behavior when you pat yourself on the back. So when you do buy yourself something nice, once you can afford it, once it's still a low percentage of your overall income or net worth, once you do that, once you buy that nice thing, like for example, my luxury car, it just reminds you that, hey, you know, this work that you're doing, this hard work that you're doing, you're getting rewarded for it too, and you should continue doing it.
Awesome. Okay, so I have a different question then related to that, which is, what is the impact of, rather than enjoying your wealth, being worried about holding on to it or always feeling like you have to save money? Because that's definitely the place that I used to be in, which was I can't spend money. I need to save money. I can't go out to eat. Just really, I mean, there's definitely fear around it, but it sounds like there's probably a negative impact over time of being in that mindset versus what you just shared of enjoying the wealth. So can you say a little bit more about how that can lead to negative consequences?
Yeah, sure. That hoarding mentality can really get carried away. And we hear stories sometimes in the news of, you know, the little lady who lived next door and she died at 90 years old, and she just had maybe her $100,000 house paid off and her old beat up car that she drove around, and she had $6 million in the bank and nobody knew about it because she was such a hoarder. So what's the point in that? And so you have to realize that your life should make sense. And if you're living a life where you're just constantly in fear, even though you have millions of dollars, if it's gone to that extreme where it's skewed that direction, then I really think that person should seek out counseling, either with a psychologist or a life coach or a hypnotherapist or something, because that life doesn't really make sense. That's clearly a life that's just being lived in fear. Now there's a big difference between that and being a spendthrift. My dad used to say, a fool and his money are soon parted, and he'd have me get a savings account. He'd showed me the power of compounding interest, which in the early 70s actually was a thing. Actually, banks did pay interest. They don't now, but they did. Right. So I was taught to be more frugal. So you really have to have that balance. When you're first building something, it is important to maybe not eat out as much, or maybe not even at all. There have been times in my life where I haven't eaten out at all, to limit expenses. Maybe stay in a cheaper hotel, things that actually make sense. But if you're continuing to do that after you're successful, you're going to set up a negative feedback loop to your subconscious mind, which could keep you down.
Yes. Okay, that's what I was wondering about, is this negative feedback loop, because even these small things you're talking about. So, my girlfriends and I will be going on a trip and we're talking about, are we going to share rooms or get our own room? And, the reality is I prefer to have my own space, and at the same time, I'm very extroverted and social. So if I don't have a roommate, then I'm kind of bummed. But I even get curious with myself around making these decisions. So am I creating a positive feedback in my abundance flow, or am I creating a negative feedback loop? So, it's just interesting. So, if I were going to choose to have a roommate, it feels like to me that it would need to be, or I would prefer it to come from this place of, that would be really fun, instead of, I'm going to save $150.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where you should be coming from. And I think a lot of people do that. Me personally, I've never, when I travel, when I go to things around the world where there are a lot of people, a lot of my friends there, I never have a roommate, mostly because I've been told that I snore, and because I don't want to be disturbed by the other person. I want to be in my own zone, especially when I travel. I want to maintain that equilibrium. But I would err on the side of not having a roommate, even if it meant sacrificing a little money that I felt uncomfortable with, because for me, that comes down to quality of life, and quality of life affects output.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, I wish we had 4 hours for this, because you can tell, I'm sure, just so into this topic. And unfortunately, we do have to end at some point.
You're listening to an interview with clinical hypnotherapist Dr. Steve G. Jones. For a free hypnosis download, please visit stevegjones.com.